Good morning, everyone, and welcome to B-Sides. Welcome to PasswordsCon. I'm Per. You can just refer to me as the crazy password guy. I've been doing this now since the first time was in December 2010 in my hometown in Bergen of Norway, high up north in Europe. Anyone here that is participating at PasswordsCon for the very first time, raise your hand. Oh, wow, awesome. Cool. Okay, so I have a serious interest in this stuff, a very healthy or unhealthy curiosity into passwords. My interest in passwords came about approximately 23 years ago. I was doing pen testing as a consultant at PwC. And during one engagement against a Fortune 500 company, we pulled out from a Windows domain controller, we pulled out tens of thousands of usernames, and then we used an incredibly simple script to try out two different passwords against all accounts. The first password was the name of the company, and the second password was just password. And blind luck, but after running the script for some time, we did find some people that were just, normal users, and they were using the company name as their password. But suddenly we also see on screen that there's an account which is using password as the password for the account. And we look up the account and we see that that account is actually a member of the domain administrators group. And this was on day one of our assignment for a Fortune 500 company. And we were three guys in the room, and we took like 3 steps back and okay guys, so this is the moment we've been waiting for. Do you want to become a criminal and move to the Bahamas? Or should we just invoice the client and say, ha ha ha, got you. And here I am, so obviously I'm not rich, I'm not living in the Bahamas. That started my fascination for passwords. And PasswordsCon came about in 2010. I was invited to attend a 1-week workshop for PhDs and professors high up north in Norway, and they asked me if I could do a ramp session on passwords. Never been to university, so I just heard, can you do a talk? I didn't know what a ramp session was supposed to be. So I came there and I saw in the program that I was not listed. I had, of course, created a talk for them, put a lot of effort into it. And in the evening, I was asked, can you start at 9 o'clock in the evening after dinner? And I was like, sure, not a problem at all. And I started at 9 and I finished at approximately 11 o'clock. So 2 hours. That's a very, very short introduction to the topic of passwords. Lots of questions, lots of applause. And then they came up to me like, a ramp session is supposed to be 5 minutes tops. So there are some PhD students that are a little pissed at you now because they've been waiting for quite some time. They have also prepared some talks. They will have to do it tomorrow. And he came back to me, this professor in Norway, and said, hey, I've got some money, I've got a budget, and I have a room. So if you would like to do a conference about passwords, we can do that. So we did the very first one in December 2010 in Bergen. I'm also sad to say that a good friend of mine, Jeremy Gosney in Texas, he is one of those who have been running PasswordsCon here while I've been away for the past 6 years because of one president and one global pandemic. He couldn't make it this year, unfortunately. But again, Jeremy, really big thank you for, I'm waving to the camera. Really big thank you for actually helping me to come to Las Vegas. I had no idea this could be done back in 2013 when we did the first PasswordsCon here in Vegas. Now, again, I'm obsessed with passwords. I'm going to talk about password surveys. And just to prove my obsession, this is a tweet. I mean, you can probably guess what my car license plate says. It's in Norwegian, but, you probably get it. And this is me tweeting out on Twitter that I have it verbally from Cormac Hurley. He's a famous researcher with Microsoft Research, with a witness present that he's interested in passwords. Well, I'm obsessed with it. Cormac, please confirm statement. And Cormac responds in public on Twitter saying, confirm. I have a healthy curiosity while Thorsheim is pathologically obsessed. And I am very proud of this tweet from Cormac Hurley. So there we are. But again, background and context for this short talk. You know, with my obsession, I take no interest in cars or alcohol or sports even. I do passwords, pins, digital authentication all the time. And I have seen so many shitty password surveys all over the world. No, not mentioning NordVPN or anyone else. But I don't trust those password surveys. I don't trust them at all. And it's not like, you know, I'm trying to be nasty here against the people or the companies that are doing these surveys. I just don't believe that they know enough about the topic to ask the correct questions, the correct way, in the correct order. And I don't think that the majority of people responding to these surveys actually understand the questions they are about to answer. That's what I want to talk about. So this is a very easy talk, so to say. And what I want you to do now, you can use your phone or pen and paper, and there's no online form, so just type this down for yourself, or you can just do it inside your head. But I will give you 10 seconds to think about the following question. How many passwords do you have? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So, random person in the audience, Jeff, how many passwords do you have?
Upwards of 700.
Upwards of 700, he says. I don't know what you came up with in your head, but just remember that number now, for now. Okay, next question. 10 seconds to think about the next one. How many different passwords do you have? 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Next question. 10 seconds. How many accounts do you have? 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, last one. Did you count all accounts into those numbers, or are you basically just counting accounts that you actively use? My point about these questions is I bring them with me anywhere I go. If I go to a party, I will crash the party asking password questions. If I go to a cafe, I will just approach random people, and you don't do that in Norway, but I do. And I say, hey, I'm a crazy password guy. I'm doing a survey about passwords. I have some questions for you. I can assure you there's a lot of people who looks at me when I do that. And I ask these, and I'm really not interested in the answers to the questions. I'm interested in how do you interpret my question? What am I actually asking about? Because when you ask how many passwords do you have, am I asking how many unique passwords do you have, or am I asking how many accounts do I have? Because my experience is some people think that the first question is about how many accounts do I have. Some people, they consider this as passwords, but you didn't ask about how many passphrases do I have, as an example. And how many accounts do you have as well? People tend to count the accounts they are actually using on a sort of like everyday, or at least weekly or monthly basis. But if you ask the question, how many accounts do you think you have that you have ever created that are most probably not deleted yet? Because that number is going to be a lot higher. So the question also is, how many accounts in active use do you have? And of course, you can make a note of this as well, because that is going to be a pretty small number compared to the total amount of accounts that you have. And also regarding all these accounts that you have, when you counted the number of accounts, did you also include customer loyalty programs that actually provides an account for you where you can log in, but you don't need that? Now, I don't know how you do customer loyalty programs in the US, but in Norway, I can go to a lot of different shops for clothing, for shoes, for, electrical tools for my home or whatever, gardening stuff. And they will ask you, are you a member with us? No. Would you like to be a member? No, hell no. Well, you get a 10% discount. Oh, hell yes, I will. And in Norway, they would just ask you your phone number, because in Norway, your phone number is, to us, is public information for almost everyone. And then they will set up an account for me. They will probably send me a text message to confirm my account. But in most cases, at least in my experience, people have never logged in to their customer loyalty account with the, clothing retailer or whatever it is, where you can see what kind of clothing have you been purchasing over the past 2 years, what kind of groceries have you been purchasing, and so on. But those are also accounts. And in those accounts, you can find interesting information about people. In some cases, stuff that your spouse is not supposed to see, or maybe your kids shouldn't see them, or you shouldn't see things that kids can buy in a grocery store, or teenagers, as an example. I have a teenage daughter myself. I'm also interested in the number of accounts. Did you include accounts that you use at work? And do you consider work as one account? Or do you have 5 or 10 or 50 different systems for payroll, for submitting working hours, or for logging into a database, or anything else like that? Did you include all those accounts into your count of number of accounts that you have and passwords? And the question, how many customer loyalty programs are you actually a member of? I still have yet to meet almost anyone in Norway who says anything else but, I have absolutely no fucking clue. People in Norway, no idea how many membership loyalty programs they are a member of, which is, to me, a little bit, discomforting. And also, when you don't know how many of these customer loyalty programs you are a member of, then asking, how many of these have you ever logged into, just to see, do they have two-factor authentication available? What kind of information do they actually keep track on about me? Well, people are clueless about that as well. That could be a security problem. That is most definitely also a privacy problem to a lot of people. Moving on, and these are the questions that you need to answer here now. But asking people, did you include pins in your count of passwords? Jim, looking at you, memorable secrets is sort of the official NIST expression to use, a memorable secret. Because to Norwegians at least, a PIN code has nothing to do with a password. Those are completely different things. So I have yet to find a single Norwegian, more or less, that have counted their pins as, or considered their pins as a password. So they don't include that in the count. And then I ask them, well, so how many pins do you have? Again, usually people are clueless. And it's also fun to ask them, of the different pins that you have, how many of them were given to you, and how many did you actually create yourself? 4 digits, 3, 5, 6, or whatever you have. In Norway, if you ask people, what is a pin? They will say 4 numbers. And if you ask them, well, could a pin be 6 numbers? Yeah, on my iPhone. But other than that, in Norway, it's PIN codes in Norway, they are 4 digits everywhere, for everything. And I'm fascinated about the fact that, if there's a place where I'm required to use a PIN, not a password, I can't select anything else than a 4-digit PIN. There's no option for doing something else. And we have incredibly good statistics on user selection in 4-digit PINs. It is that easy to guess in most cases. And also, since I'm turning 51 years old in September, I actually do have an email account that I'm actively using. I have several email accounts. But asking people how many email accounts do you have, most people, they will say, well, I've got one at work and I've got one private one. And if I ask my daughter, she's 15.5 years old, she has 2 email accounts, one at school and one for personal use. The email address at school is being used for homework, and the personal account is only ever used for registering with new services, nothing else. My daughter never sends email to anyone. If anyone sends her email, you will not get an answer. If I send her an email, she won't even see it. That's how it is. I've been also asking people, do you know what a passphrase is? Did you know you can use space in passwords? Most people still don't know that. Do you know what two-factor authentication, two-step verification, or multi-factor authentication is? There's no point in asking people about that because they don't care and they don't want to learn. Just make it easy. And also asking, do you use two-factor authentication? Pointless. So my point here, to get closer to the ending of this, my key question is, if I give you 24 hours to generate a list of all accounts, passwords and pins you've got, how much do you think your answers in this survey will change? So go back to the initial question of how many passwords, how many unique passwords, how many accounts do you have? If I give you 24 hours, do you think you will stay at the same number? Will you double the number? Will you triple it? My experience with those people have actually done as I've told them to do, try to make that list. I see that on an average, the list will increase by 3 to 5 times. Typically, they will say, well, I've got 20, 30 accounts. They end up 100 or more. So from a security and privacy perspective, I think that password surveys are shit. And to the extent they are showing that we have a problem, they should actually show us we have a very fucking serious problem. So in summary, I do not trust password surveys at all. This has nothing to do with any specific company or organization or anything, but it's just the way we ask the questions and how people interpret what they are being asked about. I really want to know for these surveys, I really want to know the questions that have been asked. I'm also interested to learn how they were asked, like was this a phone interview? Was this done online? Was this done in person like this? Is it through one-on-one interviews? And I would also like to know about the questions asked by the respondents. Did they understand it? I want to learn how did they interpret the question being asked. And last but not least, my point of this, I would really like to try to generate a standard set of questions that can either be the start of a password survey or included in password surveys. So across different countries, branches, NGOs or whatever it is, we could be able to compare results across borders, across countries, across ages, genders, and so on. Because today I find that totally impossible to do. And with that, it is to be continued because I've been doing this now for many years, and I will continue to do so as well. If anyone has a background in psychology or statistics or anything, please raise your hand, ask questions, reach out, link up with me on Twitter or LinkedIn, because I would really like to, crowdsource information on this, how to ask the questions, how to interpret them, how to explain them, both to the respondents and also to the people that are going to ask people these questions to make better password surveys. And that's basically my initial start today. Thank you, and time for questions. And hopefully.
Hello? Testing? Great.
Testing.
I'm just teasing you a little here. So what is a good password?
So, you know what time of the day it is? It's just an example. To me, I say that a good password is a simple, positive sentence that is easy for you to remember. That means something that has happened in the past that won't change in the future, which is very easy for you to remember. So for the majority of men in here, maybe something not related to your wedding date as an example, but in my case as an example, I can say that some of my passwords that I need to remember are simple sentences that has to do with my parents, my family, places I've lived or they have lived or live today. I know where that is, and I need to get seriously drunk to forget, as an example, where I was born and raised.
So with that information, just made it much easier for me to brute force your password. Thank you.
Yeah, Jeff.
Okay, I always have a question. Given that people don't really, even if the questions are explained and understood, given that people don't actually know the answers to the questions, are surveys a good way to get the information you're trying to get?
Doing password surveys would be better than not doing them. But, so one more survey question. Raise your hand if you are an idiot. Why am I doing this? That one backfired. So the point of my question is, this is from John Cleese of Monty Python. He have said previously that if you ask an idiot, are you an idiot? The idiot will say, no, I'm not. And if you ask somebody who's not an idiot, they will also say no. And I think that password surveys, just like other things you can ask as well, I think there are a lot of people that they really don't want to sort of confess that they are doing something stupid, because you don't want to be considered to be stupid. And you know what you're doing is not good, but you still do it anyway. So I'm not sure how to really respond to the question initially, but I think that at least it's better to do password surveys than not to do them.
In your surveying, do you see any increased use in password managers? And do you believe those will help in password hygiene in the long run? Or do you think having that one central password controlling the keys of the kingdom could do more harm than good?
I'm very sorry, and I'm going to give him a chance to answer that question in a minute, but this man had the poor judgment to make an outrageous speaker request, which was for a hug from Naus. Now, Naus intended to be here in person to give you the hug, but instead, she's stuck fighting a fire downstairs, so I had to go give her a hug and get a hug from her to pass to you. So this is your surprise Naus hug. I even went on tiptoes, just like she would have to.
And I saw the stuff on Slack, and I couldn't remember my request because I was afraid I actually asked for spanking from Naus and Melanie. So,
Sadly, no.
oh, yeah, I'm really relieved now.
Please continue.
Yeah. So to answer that one, and this is the final one. Yes, I really do believe in password managers. I do see an increased use of them. There's, to me, a big difference between built-in password managers in browsers and, these, should I say, standalone password managers. I do recommend password managers, but not for everyone. For my own mother, as an example, my parents, I've said just write them down on a piece of paper, because the risk analysis, the threat scenario is nobody's interested in them, and keeping 5-6 passwords on a piece of paper in the kitchen drawer is fine. The Russian FSB is not going to Haugesund in Norway to break into my parents' house and try to get access to their accounts. They are not of that interest. Period. It's easy. Yeah. absolutely amazing to be at BSides. Thank you, Naus. And that's it for my talk. Thank you. And in just a few minutes, we have Jeff.